nothing will make you appreciate more what your kids are doing than to participate in that practice and not be able to walk for 3 days afterwards. She pinned me. Of course she pinned me.
Yeah.
She'd been wrestling for 2 years.
Yeah.
I'm 40 years old at the time with no experience at all. And she pinned me. And what did I do? I started punching her. Like, that was just, I got ejected by the ref. It just gave me a whole new level of respect for what my kids had been doing. And it gave me a new level of respect for all of the athletes that are out there, and it's made me a better coach, and it's made me a better parent. The number one thing that you can do as a parent to be a better parent to your athlete of any kind is just do one practice with them. One. And then you tell me that you can stand there and belittle them afterwards if you're that kind of parent.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Wrestle Her podcast. I am your host, Jessica Brenton. Today, I am joined by Cathy Holman and Gillian Holman. So how are you guys doing today?
Good. I'm doing pretty good.
Fabulous. Thanks for having us.
Yes, thanks for joining me today. So why don't you guys tell me a little bit about yourselves?
You want to roll first?
You can take the reins. Thank you.
Age before beauty, I guess. My name is Cathy Holman. I am a media personality, so I have a blog. I'm a speaker, an MC, and mom of 5, which is my most important title, and we live in Glen Rock, Wyoming.
Awesome.
My name is Gillian Holman. I'll be a sophomore in high school, and I am the second born of 5 kids.
Awesome. So, Gillian, how did you get involved in wrestling?
Around my 7th grade year, during my little brother's middle school wrestling season and my high school brother's wrestling season, I kind of started wanting to wrestle.
What sparked your interest in it?
I had a friend, we had just become friends. Her name is Lucy, and we just, watching her at all those tournaments, it was so cool, win or lose, seeing that she could still stand up against the boys.
Yeah, I loved it. So then you approached your parents, and how did they react?
So I was actually at USA practice, and I was super bored, and my dad was like, well, why don't you just go warm up with them? And then I did that first practice and ended up kind of liking it. So I was like, hey, can I maybe wrestle a tournament or two this USA season? And my dad was like, yeah, you can. My mom was like, oh, yeah. And she got my little sister to start doing it, too.
Love it. Love it. How about you? How did you get involved in the more behind-the-scenes aspect of wrestling?
So I grew up doing no sports at all. I'm a huge nerd. So I have kind of just been thrown into this through the mom side of it. And our middle son started wrestling when he was about 4 years old. And at that time, I had a baby I was nursing, kid number 4, and would just be at the tournaments completely overwhelmed. I'm just going to be honest. It's a lot for someone that's never experienced it. Right. I had no clue what was going on. Trying to nurse a baby, trying to keep toddlers off the wrestling mat,
running out in the middle.
Yeah, all the things. So honestly, at first with wrestling, I just got my kids to practice and showed up at tournaments and would just clap and pack snacks. But as my kids got older, I was able to participate more, started running tables, which is really what taught me how wrestling works, was being forced, because it was forced because I was super intimidated.
Yeah.
That's what taught me what wrestling was all about. It got me on the side of the mat. I started to understand what went into it, how to score it, all of that. And so I've been running tables now for 7 years, including I was at Wrestling High School State. I got to run tables for that, which was a whole new experience and level of stress. I've run tables at national tournaments. And just through wanting my kids to succeed and wanting the sport to grow and change in all the right ways, I've just become more and more of an advocate for it.
Love it. So you mentioned you worked at state, you worked at these national events, running tables and stuff. So state wrestling this year was a whole new beast. We had girls.
Yeah.
So talk about that experience from your perspective.
For me, so our oldest son has been at state every single year. So I've been to that state level competition and seen what it's been like. But the energy that was brought to it this year by adding the girls tournament, it literally brought tears to my eyes.
It was great.
Yeah, it absolutely did. Because the year before, I had seen how it just was a side tournament stuck onto something else that was going on that same weekend, which was a big deal and a big step, but it was nothing like being able to be there as part of the media locally, I used to have a radio show, so I knew a lot of the media people that were on the mat. And for some of them, it was their first time watching girls wrestle and watching girls at that level of competition, and to see their surprise, to see their excitement at what had been going on that they were completely unaware of. It was really rewarding and exciting, and I hope we can keep that momentum.
I agree. Jillian, you wrestled in it. So how was your experience wrestling in it?
It was awesome. I'd been to USA State, but I mean, like, that's nothing like high school state.
Yeah.
And I think I'd only gone to high school state like once or twice, and it had only been for a few hours, so I really didn't get like the gist of it. And having the girls there, it was like so much different. All of our coaches were super excited that like the girls had like one day to themselves, and they made all the boys come, even though we don't live that far away. And it was so cool. Just even though we're a separate team, we aren't really a separate team. It's not the girls and the boys. It's like the Glen Rock wrestling team. So we were all there to support each other, and it was just so cool seeing all those girls wrestling and seeing all the different levels of competition.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm so glad that your team was like that too, because I mean, there are teams that aren't like that. They didn't even show up to watch the girls when, you know, they live in the same town. So I'm glad that your team is very supportive of that, and your coaches are supportive of your girls, and you guys are one unit rather than two separate teams. That's awesome to see, and I hope that that continues, and I hope that the other teams catch on to that too, because that's definitely very important and helps the girls feel more like they're supposed to be there, not just, you know, some outcasts that, you know, we made them be a part of this. So I'm glad that your team does that. So you also came to national tournaments these last few years. So what tournaments did you attend?
First national tournament I attended was I went with you to Colorado Springs. And then my 8th grade year, I went with you to the Twin River Duels in Iowa and wrestled on the high school team. And then this year I was supposed to wrestle, but ended up getting hurt, and so I still went to help manage.
What was your favorite experience out of all of those tournaments?
I really liked that first Twin River Duels in Iowa. I think that was kind of a point for me where I realized like the separation between the girls and boys competition and how much different it is to wrestle girls. And I just realized like I actually have some skin in the game. I'm not terrible at wrestling. I just have been like wrestling the wrong gender.
Yeah, exactly. And that tournament was a blast, and you had your own cheering section, I felt. You had like 20 people there for you.
So many.
Had like signs in the audience. I'm like, wow, there's a lot of people that came to watch Jillian. So it was good to have a cheering section for Team Wyoming, because there wasn't a lot of parents that came, so that was fun.
Awesome.
And then having you wrestle on the high school team, that was really fun. That team alone was just a great team to have, and those duels were really fun. I know you didn't get a wrestle with us, but you got to take stats and manage. Did that help you? Have you taken stats and managed before?
I had taken stats like once or twice in middle school. I'd like tweaked my shoulder. It wasn't bad, and I hadn't liked managing then, and I wanted to get out on the mat, but that was kind of more towards the beginning of when I started wrestling, and then just having like a whole like 2 years by this point under my belt and having to like sit on the edge of the mat was pretty much like killing me. I wanted to go out and wrestle so bad, but I was just too hurt to do it.
You obviously got a little bit better. Gonna come back stronger. You've been to some wrestling camps. How did you overcome your injuries?
We went to physical therapy that whole week before we went to Iowa, and they did a lot of E-stem and kind of trying to loosen those muscles up. And then it was mainly just pushing through the pain and trying to do everything normal again. Like getting in and out of a car hurt, but you have to do it anyway. So just pushing through the pain and doing the stretches, doing what the physical therapist tells you, working, just trying to work through the pain and getting back to doing everything normal was probably what helped me the most.
Okay. So physically you have to do everything your physical therapist tells you to do. You got to push through that pain. You got to make sure you're doing everything correctly, taking care of your body. How about mentally?
Just knowing that it's not forever.
Yes.
And that there's more seasons, more opportunities.
Yes, I think that's the hardest part that a lot of people deal with. Once they get an injury, they get in their head and, they are upset and they, think that they can do it and they want to do it, but, they can't because their body's stopping them. And so I think having that mental toughness and, mental toughness isn't always great because you think you can push past an injury,
Yeah,
but
but you
it's
can't.
you gotta listen to your body. So I think mentally you gotta tell yourself, I'm gonna be okay. It'll just be like this for a little while, and then next season I'll come back.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you're able to push through that and able to have that mental toughness in a good way, because it can be in a bad way. You can hurt yourself more and then be out longer. So I'm glad you were able to do that, and I can't wait to watch your next season.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited too.
Yeah, should be a good season. So Cathy, you also came to those national events with us and worked tables and were a chaperone for us. How was that different compared to a state level tournament?
I think the level of competition is insane at national tournaments, and in a good way, in a way that is humbling but also inspiring to watch these girls do it. Where she was able to wrestle the first year, we really saw, like she said, it was a confidence builder for her, because USA Wrestling, she'd only been wrestling 1 year, by the way. Like, this was her first year ever wrestling.
Yeah.
She's wrestling up as a high schooler. USA Wrestling season, it was all boys. It was a tough weight class. And I think, what was yours? Like,
I was wrestling 105, 14U boys, and there were a lot of good kids. There were three kids in the club that were really good that I had to practice with, and then there's just so many good.
But you
boys
got your
out
booty
there.
handed to you, like your record was.
My record was somewhere. I won around 7 matches and lost about 52.
So then to go to Iowa and be wrestling, and she won 2 of her matches there. Wrestling up at the national level was a big confidence builder for her.
Yeah.
And it, like she said, it kind of clicked, and she realized the difference between wrestling boys and girls, because there absolutely is a difference.
100%.
And I've seen it with our boys when they're wrestling female athletes. I've seen it with her. So to go and see that more even playing field, or I guess more even mat field, I don't even know what the phrase would be for wrestling, was amazing. And man, girls are brutal.
Yes.
They are brutal.
Yes.
And this year, our youngest daughter was invited to Iowa. It was her second year wrestling. And she was a second grader and sometimes was competing against 8th graders because of her size. And to see her fearlessness and how she just went out there and did the best that she could for the team, and to see that over and over with all of our Wyoming girls, it was a really proud moment. It was a really proud moment. Not to mention that team aspect of going to a national tournament. These girls go back to the state of Wyoming with a special bond that I just don't think you can describe.
Yeah, I agree. I think, as soon as we start the trip, nobody knows each other. And as we, practice every day together and sit mat side and scream at the top of our lungs for each other, you create a bond, and and then you come back and you're best friends, and that's never going to change.
Yeah, and then even when they're competing on the mat against each other, as soon as they're off the mat, like, that friendship is there. And I just love the respect that we have here as a state, all these female wrestlers for each other. Yeah. It's something, the respect and camaraderie, I don't see it on the boys' side. Yeah. The way that I see it on the girls' side.
Yeah, it's crazy. I went to Fargo Nationals, and that was the first time that they had girls separate from the boys for their national championship matches. And the girls' crowd was insane. Similar to state wrestling here. Like, the girls, it's a different beast. Like, the girls are so supportive, and they get so loud for each other. And,
that's for sure.
They want to be best friends with each other. And I don't think that's the same with the guys.
No, it's not. I can say that with 100% certainty with all 3 of my boys that are wrestling. You don't see that. And I wonder, as our program continues to grow, if it's going to change and pivot too, if it's because it is small, these girls are so tight and have had to fight against so many other things together, if that's what it is. I hope it doesn't change, though. Yeah. I really hope that we continue to foster that kind of environment.
Yeah, I hope that definitely stays the same, but I hope that there are some things that do change. Like, I hope to see girls tournaments being ran like the boys' tournaments.
Yes, I was very disappointed in the way that there was no regionals this year for girls, and I think it impacted things going into state. So I'm very excited that we've made some changes there for the state of Wyoming.
Yeah.
You had mentioned earlier about Glen Rock really having that attitude of it's a wrestling team. It's not a boys team and a girls team. It's just our wrestling team.
Yep.
And a lot of credit goes to our middle school coaches who have fostered that environment. So it was just natural for all of those kids when we had that official female team moving into high school. It never occurred to them to have it be any different at all. Our coaches have really fostered that from the ground up. And I hope that other coaches are listening to this. And if they need to, I guarantee you our Glen Rock coaches would be a resource for how they foster that.
Awesome. Since you brought up middle school, I also think starting in middle school is what we need to do, because last year was the inaugural year for us, and they didn't even have girls brackets in middle school. So this year they need to have girls brackets. They need to offer girls brackets. And, their argument to me was, well, we don't have enough numbers to have girls bracket. Well, you need to offer it for girls to show up to this tournament, because if you don't offer it and then you just put a bracket together when they get here, they're not coming because they don't want to wrestle boys.
And we need to do that push too, because we're not doing our high school girls any favors not starting them with that 2 years of middle school wrestling experience. If they're just popping into it their freshman year, if they haven't done USA wrestling, if they haven't done any of that, it's a disservice to them. And I can tell you that in Glen Rock, especially, like our USA girls team is bigger every single year. And then that transfers to our middle school team, if that makes sense. Because we've got them, like, my youngest daughter, she's in 3rd grade now. So she, by the time she gets to middle school, if she's still doing, she's going to have all these years, and she needs to have good competition. For that 7th and 8th grade season.
I agree. And it needs to be girls.
Yeah.
Like
there's so many differences.
It's time. Yeah. They need to have a girls bracket in elementary school, middle school, and high school. They should not be wrestling boys. Period. They can in practice. I honestly grew up wrestling boys, and I think it's good to have partners that are boys in the wrestling room.
Absolutely.
I think that helped me learn different styles and wrestle different body types, helps you become a better wrestler. But I think in competition, it's not fair. So I think middle school in Wyoming, we need to figure it out, and we need to give girls their brackets. We need to have girls cut singlets.
Yes, please.
Yes,
please.
Yes.
And have conversations too. I know, like I said, my boys have been wrestling forever, and it is a different beast when you have a girl wrestling. My boys had wrestled girls. We were okay with it. My husband had coached Lucy, her friend, for years, but there are different challenges physically and mentally. My husband has said over and over, he's got to coach the girls different than he coaches the boys. Not that he's not giving them the same energy, but there are things that you have to pivot, things that you have to be aware of.
I just went to the Leadership Summit in Colorado Springs, and they're offering a teal course on USA Wrestling that specifically is focused on girls and women in wrestling. I had a couple gentlemen behind me that were not in favor of it because they said that girls should be treated the exact same as the boys, which I agree to a point on that. Yes, we shouldn't be treating them differently. Coaching-wise in a wrestling room, practices should be ran very similar. But the elephant in the room is they are different. They are girls. Girls have periods. Boys do not. How are you going to deal with that as a coach? Your high school girl, middle school girl comes up to you, starts her period for the very first time in her life as a 15-year-old, bleeds through a singlet. Coach, how are you going to handle that situation? So
let's just talk about underwear too. What underwear to wear with the singlets? Like there's one certain brand and style that is incredibly comfortable and amazing. And any wrestling mom, I'm like, hey, by the way, have her wear this for singlets. Have her wear that. Like things like that matter. The boys don't have to worry about that stuff. They don't.
They don't at all. And I also think they're just different body types. Like girls are more stronger in your legs. They have bigger
and
thighs.
The flexibility.
And flexibility is huge. Girls like to throw way more. So there's just different coaching techniques that you have with girls and boys, and it is different. And also, if you're used to coaching boys and you have a girl enter your wrestling room, how are you going to react? You need to know how to handle that situation. You need to know how to make her feel comfortable. And one of the coach's arguments behind me is, I asked them the period question, how are you going to deal with that? And they're like, well, a girl should know how to deal with her period.
That's not how it works.
No, you should make her feel comfortable.
You would hope that they have parents that do that, but you don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not okay with that. Plus, we were, discussing, Jillian and I, the weight gain that comes with being a mature female. You're going to be gaining and losing 2 to 3 pounds depending on what part of the month you're in.
Yeah.
And that is stressful for these girls.
Yeah. And the water retention. Yeah. You can not make weight, and the water retention.
It's the reality of biology.
Yeah.
Let's embrace it instead of ignoring it and find a way to work around it. That's comfortable.
Yeah. Different weight changes and different ways to lose weight, because a guy can lose 5 to 6 pounds in a practice. Yeah. Most I've lost is like 2.5 pounds ever.
I wish I could do that.
I know. Yeah. It's like my brothers said, I'm on weight now. I lost 6 pounds. Cool. I lost 0.4.
Yeah. It's like, my husband will be like, I quit drinking soda for a week and dropped 10 pounds. How nice. I mean, it's lucky something. You. Yeah, right. It's something. My comment too is, what is it going to hurt?
Yeah.
How will it hurt?
Education is education.
Yeah, you got it. Fine. You don't want to take it. You think they should be treated the same. Spend an hour and a half of your life, and I would hope your mind would change. But if not, what does it hurt? It's an hour and a half or however long it is to take the training.
Yeah, exactly. But I think education is education.
Absolutely.
And you need to not be stagnant in your coaching. You need to be a student of the sport always. You're not the best coach. So I think that staying a student of the sport and educating yourself constantly is important. So I hope that people will continue to take this course, and I think it'll be some good information and help those coaches that don't know how to necessarily deal with a girl in their wrestling room, and I hope it is a good resource for them. So I'm glad that they came out with that course for sure.
I think it's going to be great. I know, like I said, my husband's a coach. I've got my coach's card. We already were talking about when are we going to fit this into our schedule to take. It wasn't why are we? And it was like, all right, how are we going to put this in so we can better serve our kids? Because in the end, isn't that what coaching is about?
Yeah.
It's not about you and your ego.
Right.
It's about serving your athletes the way that they need you.
Yeah, I agree. I think that'll help us learn more things about our athletes, all of them, collectively. And it'll be a good push for us and maybe a good step forward. So that's the things that I hope that it teaches us. So wrestling does teach you a lot of things in life and just everyday aspects of it. What things has wrestling taught you, Jillian?
Persistence. Is like one of the big things, because middle school season I was kind of split like half and half. Like I didn't do super good, but I didn't do terrible, and it was good enough where I wanted to go and do USA. And then that first USA season was terrible. I almost quit. Like I did not want to continue wrestling, but then after going to Iowa, actually wrestling girls my weight, I kind of realized, okay, like this isn't bad. Let's get this first year of high school, first few practices. Let's see how it is, and just keep pushing forward and realizing that it does eventually get better. And it was my first year. I barely knew how to take a shot. Like you can't put too much weight on yourself.
Yeah, you're not going to show up and be the best wrestler in the world. You got to definitely put in work. And I think wrestling is very unforgiving with that. And if you cut corners, you're the only one that suffers from it. It's not a team sport, so you have to do everything consistently and all the time and push yourself. And I think once you see those rewards for yourself, continuing to do the work, it's a good reward at the end of that.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it, just getting your hand raised. Even if it's just once, it's enough to keep you going for a while.
That feeling is pretty great. And then, after you've won a match and you're done wrestling even, it just later on in life, it teaches you so many things about yourself and what you can push through and stay persistent in, and, how much further you can go than your body tells you to. Yeah. Your mind is way stronger than your body. And I think that that's something that's really cool about wrestling, that it teaches you. How about you, Cathy, from a parent perspective? What has wrestling taught you?
It's a brutally emotional sport from the parent standpoint. I have cried on the side of the mat. Like I've gotten emotional. I've been more overjoyed and proud on the side of that mat watching all my kids. I think as a parent, it has taught me how important it is to know when you need to cheer them on, when you need to step back, And it's also taught me how tough my kids really are. So growing up and not being an athlete in any way, shape, or form, this last year, I've, been on the side of the mat screaming at my kids, up, fight, you've got this. I'm definitely not the aggressive, mean parent. We all know there are those, but I am definitely come on, you've got this, dig deep. So I decided I was going to take a week and do wrestling practice with my kids. And I was going to wrestle my daughter because I truly had no idea.
Yeah.
And if there is one thing I can recommend to wrestling parents, it is do one practice with your kids and then let them wrestle you, assuming you're kind of close in weight. Okay. At the time I had 15, 20 pounds on her, but nothing will make you appreciate more what your kids are doing than to participate in that practice and not be able to walk for 3 days afterwards. And then also, I wrestled her and she's laughing because she pinned me. Of course she pinned me.
Yeah.
She'd been wrestling for 2 years.
Yeah.
I'm 40 years old at the time with no experience at all. And she pinned me. And what did I do? I started punching her. That was just, I got ejected by the ref. But that was just my initial, someone was on top of me and but then afterwards when we got done laughing, it just gave me a whole new level of respect for what my kids had been doing. And it gave me a new level of respect for all of the athletes that are out there. And it's made me a better coach and it's made me a better parent. So it has taught me how strong my kids are. It has taught me a lot about my own self-control and needing to put my emotions aside and keep my mouth quiet. But I mean it. If you are watching this and fine if you don't want to wrestle your kid, but I am telling you now, the number one thing that you can do as a parent to be a better parent to your athlete of any kind is just do one practice with them. One. And then you tell me that you can stand there and belittle them afterwards if you're that kind of parent. Anyway, that's one thing I wish every parent would do.
I love that. That's great advice.
Yeah.
Jillian, do you have any advice to any girls that want to start wrestling?
I would say if you're starting to wrestle and you are younger, wrestle the boys. Because the body difference isn't there yet. You'll get way more experience. You're going to maybe win some, probably lose some, just because, that's the way it works. But mat time is mat time, and anytime you step out on the mat, you get better.
Love it. Yes, I agree. And wrestling's wrestling, and there's a lot of girls that don't want to try different styles of wrestling that's not folk style. So wrestling's wrestling, and I feel like that's definitely some good advice. Get out there, try it, wrestle the boys, wrestle the girls. You're going to lose, but you got to work hard to get those wins. And then once you get those wins and get your hand raised, it's the best feeling in the world.
You realize why everyone tries so hard at it.
Exactly. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I had a great time with you guys on here, and thank you guys for joining me. We will see you next time. Bye.
I can't accept the loss, I'm hard-headed. There's a little bit of madness to my method. Many falling off that fine line that I'm treading. I risk anything to be great, and I'm not letting nobody rob me of my victory. Number one, that's what I'm meant to be. When by any means, only thing that makes sense to me, I can make nice or make history.